Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Empower Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Monos. Today's going to be an interesting episode. I actually don't have a guest today. I'm just going to kind of share some thoughts that I've had. One of the first things I want to start with is that I am very uncomfortable speaking on my own to the camera. That's something I have to get better at. But I've already told myself that I'm just going to record for, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes, put myself in an uncomfortable situation because nobody grows within their comfort zone. And then as long as the episode's not a total mess, I would release it. And it's just an opportunity to put something out there in the world. And even if it's not that good, build off of it. I think for much of my life, I struggled with the idea of perfectionism, where if it wasn't good enough, I wouldn't release it. But what that is to me is maybe it's a misguided arrogance in the sense that I can't release something because it's not good enough. And I'm expecting to be as good as somebody who's done something for 20 years, for example, but they didn't start at the top of the mountain. So why should I expect without putting myself out there that I would also start at the top of the mountain? So suppose this is the bottom of the mountain. Here I am. I'm just going to speak and I'm just going to try to get better at speaking. So perfectionism, it was partly that. It was also the idea that perfectionism kind of hindered my productivity. And I wish that I had the mentality, both as an athlete and I have the ability to do it now as a business owner, as a trainer, all these things to get over that and to focus more on growth and productivity. What I mean by that is using an athletic context. When I was a player, I thought, man, I gotta make sure every pass is perfect. I was a soccer player. I gotta make sure every pass is perfect. Every shot is perfect. Every dribble is perfect. And I put so much pressure on myself that I would be uh, kind of stuck. I'd be too rigid. I'd be too slow to react. I'd be too tense. I'd be in my head when I needed to be in my body to be performing my best. So the idea is that if I focus more on productivity, okay, I miss a shot, but that happens. And if you don't shoot, you don't score. Maybe the next thing I do is I just try to win the ball back for my team. I miss a shot, and then I track back and I fight like hell to win the ball, and then cool, I have a recovery. I got the ball back from my team. I make a pass, I miss it. Okay, get the ball back, do it again, defend, whatever. But I would have played a lot more freely, and that's actually how I played my best. Is usually when I was playing with friends or playing pickup or something like that. Sometimes I thought of myself as a practice player because there didn't seem to be that much pressure in those situations, and then a game would happen, and it wasn't the pressure of the fans or the pressure of the coaches. It had nothing to do with that. It was all pressure that I put on myself. And it's also kind of liberating thinking, well, I became a coach after my playing career. I didn't pay attention to the mistakes of my players. I just paid attention to the things they were trying to do. And the players that constantly tried to make things happen were the players that were allowed to make the most mistakes. And if I knew that at the time, that would have been very liberating for me as well. So one of the main things I'm trying to get across is focus on productivity. If you struggle with perfectionism, um, maybe shift your mindset because it doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. You can get really, really good. You can always grow, but that's the growth mindset. That's the growth mentality. I urge you to live that life where you always try to improve, right? Things can always be better, never being satisfied. I always think of my grandpa. He would always say, he's French, he'd say, "Peut mieux faire," which means you can always do better. Um, there's an inside joke where my grandma would cook dinner and he'd always say, "C'est mangeable," which means it's edible. Even if she makes remarkable meals, she always says it's edible, meaning like, oh, you can do better. And that kind of just became like the culture of our family. Um, I took that to what I believe is the extreme, which is perfectionism. Took me a long time to learn that that's essentially a myth, and it's better to just be productive, to put yourself out there, to be okay with failure. Failure is a step to learning. So it's almost better to fail faster. A story that I want to tell that has something to do with this is I was in my MMA class, and we were doing kickboxing sparring for about an hour. And this one kid, he's probably 17. He was just getting his ass handed to him. You feel for the kid. He finally sparred with me in the final round. I feel bad about this. I still feel bad about this. He was going way too hard. The assistant coach was saying, match the intensity of the lighter person. So sometimes you're in a class like that, you try to go maybe 60, 70% at that kind of pace. You can almost laugh. You can almost relax a little bit. You can try new things. It gives you the ability to kind of explore distance, movement, different shots. But if someone's trying to take your head off, you kind of tense up a little bit. He was already at that level. I gave him enough information to say like, "Hey, take it back a notch." And he just kept going really hard. So I thought, okay, I just got to teach him a little bit of a lesson. I didn't try to hurt him, but I just tried putting a little bit more speed, a little bit more power, and then maybe hoping that he would dial it back. He never did. At the end, he's up against the cage, and he seems pretty upset with himself. The assistant coach goes over and starts talking to him, and he was saying stuff like, "Oh, I'm not disappointed um, at this, that, or the other. It's just like I'm not very good. I don't feel like I'm improving very fast. I can't believe I let myself get hurt. I got hurt. People were hitting me, this, that, and the other." And after a while, I decided to ask him if he was comfortable with me sharing some advice. And this is essentially some of the advice that I shared with him. It was about the idea of perfection. And his bar for sparring was to be perfect. It was what I struggled with when I was playing. He thought he needed to land all his shots and not get hit at all. And you cannot do a combat sport and not, let's say it's a striking sport, can't do it and never get hit. It happens. And you should use it as an opportunity to learn. Sometimes I drop my hands, I get caught a couple times, and I remember to pick my hands back up. But you know what the best teacher is getting caught a couple times. Same thing with a submission. Someone might try to apply a submission in like jujitsu, for example. It teaches you to pay attention to when people are setting those things up in the future. So fail, fail often. You know, don't want to be detrimental. Don't seek failure, but allow yourself to fail. It's inevitable, so why fear it, right? Um, so I was just talking to him about the idea of perfection and all that stuff. I said, "Listen, you're in the wrong sport. If you don't want to ever feel any pain whatsoever." And I actually think that you know these fighting sports they can be scary. It's not fun to be submitted. It's not fun to be crushed with somebody on top of you. It's not fun to be hit. But there's something kind of cool about being challenged in that way and surviving. It kind of builds a confidence within you. Very quick shift. I wanted to mention too that I see a lot of this alpha male content on the internet. That drives me crazy. That absolutely drives me crazy. You can't have 10 alphas in a room. That doesn't exist. In theory, there's only one alpha. And the only way to know who the alpha is for the alpha to assert themselves. We're not wolves. We're humans. Like we can just talk to each other and use our words. But I urge anybody that has that kind of mentality to join combat sports because it feels like, at least to me, there's always a bigger fish. Yesterday was my first session in jiu-jitsu. I've done it for about a year, where when we got to the sparring rounds after all the technical work, I submitted all my partners of that day and didn't get submitted once. And while that was kind of a cool thing because for the first year or so of training, there was, well, the first couple months I was getting submitted all the time. Maybe for the middle months of that year, I was maybe got my first session where I didn't get submitted at all. And that was its own victory. And maybe I was getting a submission here or there. Yesterday, it could have been like a big deal, but then I just told myself, okay, well, I just kind of got fortunate with who I was paired up with. No disrespect to them, but like if I'm a white belt, which I am, and I'm paired up with other white belts, that's going to be generally easier competition for me than the days where I'm paired with the blue belt former college wrestler who has 100 pounds on me, or the purple belt who's a master of leg locks, or the black belt. You know, so the idea is that like I went to open mat on Sunday, and I rolled with a guy very nice, and he was probably had 80 pounds on me. A little bit taller than me. I'm 5'10", I'm 150 pounds. He's probably 6'1", 230 pounds is my guess. And then he had several stripes on his black belt. So the dude he's a monster. And I just realized so fast that there was nothing I can do against him. And he realized that too. So he just let me work. And it's just important to not have a crazy ego. It's okay to want to compete. It's okay to want to win. But in a world like that, you learn very quickly that, this whole alpha mentality, I can talk like it, but you get punched in the face by someone who can hit you more than you can hit them, or you get submitted, or someone pins you and you can't escape. That kind of changes that real fast. I feel like there's too many like chihuahuas yapping on the internet. And I don't know, I feel like you gotta get exposed and you gotta put yourself in a situation for that to happen. I think it teaches respect and I think it teaches humility. Um, Along those lines, I also wanted to talk about um, on the internet, some people get really triggered by things. And so there was a post that I saw today from a trainer that I like and I respect. And I didn't initially agree with the post. I didn't initially like the way the post made me feel. But then I tried thinking about it as a mature adult. What he was saying was that he can tell if someone's a good trainer or a bad trainer by one thing. And this is already an opinion. Um, and so it should be taken as such. It's not a fact. He's not saying this makes good trainers versus bad trainers. It doesn't apply. So you can just agree or disagree with his opinion. His opinion was that uh, he watched a session, and for the entire hour, the client and the trainer didn't stop talking to each other. So he said that it was a conversational pace, meaning that there was never a point where the client was training hard enough that they couldn't talk, or that the trainer gave the client the opportunity to do that, or recognized that they need to shut up, for lack of better words, and push their client a little bit harder. Um, and so for a second, I like felt a little bit triggered because I think that I'm a good trainer. I'm not going to say like the best or anything like that, but I feel pretty good about what I do. I believe in what I do. I think I can help people. And he was saying that like, oh, if you do this one thing, you're a bad trainer. And I think maybe other things can make you a bad trainer. And maybe it doesn't even make you a bad trainer. Maybe it's just a bad habit for any trainer, whether you're good or bad. But instead of being triggered by that, I just reflected, and this is the point that I'm getting at. I reflected and thought, this is actually a good reminder that sometimes I yap a little bit too much. Um, which I think is funny because anytime someone meets me and my wife in public, I'm naturally quite introverted. So they think that, I'm very quiet and calm, and she's very friendly and outgoing. But when we come back to the house, and I'm around her, I'm around my like very close friends, like I yap all the time. And with the clients I've been training for years, it's part of the reason why I think that I have some loyalty from my clients is because we've built a good connection with each other. We've had good conversations. We get along as people. Um, and you don't have to choose between being friends with your clients and being not friends with your clients, but being an effective trainer. You can do both. But I use this as an opportunity to, instead of being offended, instead of writing the guy off as an idiot, instead of, DMing him or commenting and getting in my feelings or something like that, I just use it as a good reminder to shut up a little bit in my sessions and let my clients push a little bit harder. And if they're, yapping too much, not to be disrespectful, then maybe that's just a little hint to me that like, oh, I gotta up the weight 5 pounds and then see if they still talk. And I find when I give people exercises that are hard enough, they don't talk to me and they don't even listen to me as well. I have to find time to talk to them between sets. So the main thing I was going to say with that is allow yourself to not be emotional in these situations, to actually consider what other people are saying. I think being open minded is so undervalued these days. I think it's been such a powerful thing for me to learn and grow as a person and as a trainer. The first book I ever read was a Mike Boyle book. I don't want to throw Mike Boyle under the bus, but in my field, he's loved by some and made fun of by others. And I think it's too unfair to say he's all good or too unfair to say he's all bad. I think he's done a lot of good stuff in the industry. I have a lot of respect for him. In fact, he's responded to DMs when I was starting off in the industry. He's even made like posts based off of questions. So I actually have a lot of um, good feelings towards him. I don't want to disrespect him in the slightest when I say any of this. But I just took everything he said because I only read one book and wasn't exposed to any other ideas as like, this is it. This is a smart and successful guy. I believe everything he says. He says, core stability over core movement. You don't have to do sit ups or back extensions. You can just do like planks and wheel rollouts and side planks and anti rotation presses. He would say that you should prioritize speed training, the over conditioning. Not that conditioning is important. He does do conditioning, but he says if you can get someone really fast, they can run 20 miles an hour, and the other guy, your opponent, runs 17 miles an hour. You both get tired. You're now running 17 miles an hour. He's running 14 miles an hour. You're still going to have the advantage later in the game. I think that loses the nuance of what if that person is so conditioned that they don't lose anything and you're so deconditioned that you do lose something, or you do one sprint, you're gassed, and you can't play the next play or two, and they're still fresh. So I don't think that it's the best argument. But all this to say that when I first started in this industry, I was like, man, this is true. Everything else is wrong. And I wouldn't pay attention to these things. And I saw some trainers say things that maybe it was like triggering to my trainer brain. But I just allowed myself to think about what they were saying for 1 second. I'm like, man, they got some good points. Does it mean that everything that, Mike Boyle, the first person I read a book from, was wrong? Not necessarily. Um, Especially when perhaps he would be on one side of the spectrum, someone would be on the opposite end of the spectrum. It negates the fact that there's a huge middle end of the spectrum. Um, so one of the main things I was trying to get at with the original idea of the trainer who made the post about good trainer versus bad trainer is you don't have to get triggered so easily. Be open minded. Try to consider what other people are saying. You can take it however you want. But then also being open minded is a powerful thing. This leads me to my next point. There's a lot of people that approach conversations as this or that. And I listed a couple actually. Some people say interval cardio versus steady state cardio. Why would you do something for 30 minutes at a steady pace when you can do 5 rounds of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off on like a fan bike? And you'll be huffing and puffing. It gets your heart rate up and it has all these benefits. There's also benefits to steady state cardio. It's a time and place thing. And I think the goal of a trainer is to understand the time and place. But if everything's a trade off, why would you write off half of the equation? Why is it not better to just understand when, in this instance, this is better, and in that instance, this is better? But you don't have to just take one side. You don't have to be, part of a cult. You don't have whatever the case may be. There is room for nuance. Along those lines, too, there was a post I saw recently saying it is okay to use absolute statements with clients. You don't have to bombard them with information. Uh, Everybody says it depends, and it's kind of an annoying thing to do in the industry. I understand how saying it depends can be an annoying thing because sometimes people just want a straight answer. I think and I know this kind of goes against what that person was saying, and I don't need to name names. I very much respect the person who said that. I just disagreed on that one point, that you can still have nuance without bombarding people with information. So if somebody says, "Are deadlifts bad for your back?" For me, I can just say, "No," because I generally believe they're not bad for your back. I don't like to demonize any exercise. But what if they think, "Oh, I can do any kind of deadlift in any kind of situation," and then they've never deadlifted before and they try to rip 300 off the ground with, slack and pulling as fast as they can. They pull their back and it's like, "Oh, he told me it's like good in all situations." I think it's not good to use absolutes because something like that might happen. Same thing with like, okay, you might get hurt with a deadlift. Doesn't mean you should never do deadlifts. So I don't like that type of language. I think, generally you should avoid absolutes. Um, I realize I intentionally avoided one just there, but the main idea is that you can provide nuance. Does it mean you need to tell the client about every detail that goes into a safe deadlift versus a not safe deadlift? Does it mean you need to teach them the history of the deadlift? For example, why is it called the deadlift? Well, Roman soldiers had to pick up dead bodies. They tweaked their back. They developed a technique to pick them up. They were picking up dead bodies, the deadlift. Like, fun little history lesson for you. Do I need to teach them that? No. Can I? Sure. But essentially, your goal is to understand what the client wants to know and give them just enough and not overdo it. So I appreciate what you're saying with there absolutely is sometimes too much. It depends and then over nuance, but it doesn't mean that you can't ever say it depends or use any nuance whatsoever. Um, and that's the thing is like there may be no right answers to anything in life, or not many at least. And it's okay to not have the right answers. This kind of went with the whole perfectionism thing. I used to think black or white. Well, this is good and that's bad, and it just gave me this confidence. But then I realized, oh, I'm actually kind of flawed because I'm not well rounded. I don't have nuance. I don't have the ability to be adaptable and to be able to just see the world as like a thousand shades of gray, and to just say, I don't always have the answer for that. That's actually, I think, a powerful thing. Um, I used to have sleepless nights because I would worry about something or think about something, and I needed to get the answer to that. And I've learned that like I might not get the answer, and that's okay, or just maybe not today. So not like don't sweat it. Um, and that's essentially what this podcast is too. It's me saying like, oh, who cares about perfection? I'm gonna get the camera rolling. I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna learn along the way. And you know what? I think I'm gonna go a lot further with this approach than if I just you know, started a podcast, did 5 minutes, hated it, deleted it, and then didn't touch it for 2 weeks because I was so discouraged. Um, Along those lines, I also wanted to talk about this whole optimal versus not optimal trend going on the internet. I don't love the word optimal, but I understand why it has some level of persistence to still exist and be in this industry. People think that you have to do the best thing to have the highest ROI, the highest return on investment. If you have the choice between 2 things, do the thing that's better if you have a goal that you're trying to achieve. If it comes down to enjoyment, do the things you like, don't do the things you don't like within reason. If you, like, have certain goals, for example, like, if you wanna play sports and, like, all you like doing is bench press and you never squat, you never lunge, you never run, you never do, like, any plyometrics or anything like that, that's not smart. So it doesn't have to be truly the most optimal thing. It just has to be intelligent enough, right? Good enough is good enough. How do we know what good enough is? Um I had a guest on my podcast, Pat Damiano. He's awesome. He's in the unconventional space, so that means kettlebells, maces, which are like giant clubs, and like sticks with the ball on the end of them. He has clubs as well, sandbags, all that stuff. And he gets a lot of comments where people say, "Man, like that's not the best thing for building muscle. That's not the best thing for building strength. Machines might be better for that. Barbells might be better for that." And he always responds with, "I know. They're not the best. And yet I do it every day. I love it. I'm jacked, I'm fit, I'm strong, I'm mobile. So why is it getting so much hate? Like it's still an option that exists." Now, the context to that is I came from a sports performance background. And the idea is that every 1% matters so, so, so much. So you got to get people the best nutrition, the best exercise, the best this, the best that. You have to measure every single thing. Almost prove your worth. Did I show that someone's squat went up? Did they show that they're able to jump higher? They're able to sprint faster? And he actually was somebody who changed my mind on this. I always thought it has to be perfect, otherwise it's not worth doing. Then I got a puppy, and love that dog. But when he was a puppy, he was chewing things up in the house, and we couldn't leave him alone for a long time. I couldn't do my hour and a half optimal workouts. So I thought, what can I do? I can still get a stimulus. And I got into unconventional training. I thought, maybe clients will one day want to do something like this. I don't want to be a coach that doesn't teach it and says it's bad just because I've never tried it. I'm not confident with it. I don't like it. So I thought, let me give it a shot. And I found that no, it's not as good as the hour and a half workout. But if I pick a lower body movement, a push, and a pull, and I do, I don't know, 8 reps on each exercise, and I try to do as many rounds of that as I can in 15 minutes, I'm huffing, I'm puffing, I got a pump, I got stronger. Is it the strongest I could possibly get beating out barbells? No, but is it stronger than doing nothing at all? Yes. In that instance, it's worth it. And that's why I think optimal can be kind of annoying. It just depends on the context. If you are pushing for Olympic gold, yeah, optimal's pretty darn important. Um, but if you're just somebody who's just trying to get better, exhaust what you have available to you. Do what makes sense for you in that moment. And a lot of people will force themselves to do things they don't like, and then they don't even continue doing the thing that they should be doing anyway. So in that instance, it's better to do something that you enjoy that's like 80% as good as something that's 100% optimal that you hate doing and won't do in the first place. Like long term, that's a better net. Um, so along those lines is, try everything. There's a space for all these different things. Try kettlebells, try yoga, try running, try biking, try whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Also, with some level of awareness and caution, see how your body responds. See if you're doing too much range, doing things too fast, doing it too much, whatever. Use a little bit of common sense, but try things out. You never know what you like. One thing that I love with my clients is when they add something outside of our training. I want them to be as well rounded as possible. We have usually 2 or 3 sessions a week with my clients. Um, 2 hours of exercise, I think is great. I think it's definitely better than nothing. I think it's great when you're coming off the couch. But I always try to get clients to pick something up. Like if you like to golf, golf all the time, but try to walk. Try to carry the bag if you can. That's more exercise added. If you like pickleball, try pickleball. If you like swimming, then swim. If you like biking, bike. If you like hiking, hike. If you like whatever. And when a client adds something, to me that's beautiful because the body wants to move. The body enjoys movement. You might not if you do too much too soon, but once you get into it, like people fall in love with running because of the runner's high. People fall in love with the pump and get into bodybuilding, all that stuff. You can get to that point. And then I also think that it's important to be well rounded. So anyway, this whole optimal thing, yes, if you have the choice between two things, you feel the same about the two things, all else is considered equal, might as well do the thing that has a big return on investment. But otherwise, don't sweat it so much. And then kind of along those lines too, there's a lot of people, it's kinda like this whole glass half full, glass half empty mentality. A lot of people that won't start because of maybe this perfection mentality. They'll say, "Man, I would be fit if I had a Hollywood trainer and a dietitian and I had, all the time in the world to do this and that." And it's like, "Okay, well, you have dumbbells in your basement. You have 30 minutes of free time, and you can get a salad if you wanted to, whatever." It, like, might not be perfect, but it's a positive choice, and you just have to stack positive choices. So, what I would tell somebody is exhaust what you have available to you. And then if you're not able to progress anymore for whatever reason, then maybe you can start to consider, oh, the circumstances are, weighing me down. But like when I was in high school, it wasn't even the smartest training ever. I had a pull up bar, I had some adjustable dumbbells, I had some space, I had some body weight. I'd go on YouTube, I'd look up a push up circuit, I'd look up an ab circuit, I'd do pull ups until I couldn't do pull ups anymore. I would do jumping squats and jumping lunges. I'd do planks until I couldn't hold any more wall sits. Just stuff like that. And then I just go and play and sprint and run as hard as I could. And was it perfect? Was it better than, going to a gym and having a coach and learning the basic lifts and doing them and getting stronger and all that stuff? No. But was it better than just sitting around and doing nothing? Absolutely. So just recommend having the mentality of, do the most you can with what you have and with where you are. So that's all I have for today. I know it's not the longest episode. If you listened, thank you. I know I probably rambled and got in a bunch of different directions and all that stuff, but these are some thoughts that I've had. They've kind of been weighing on me. I've been having these conversations with friends and, um, some trainer friends over the internet and all that stuff. But it was definitely something that I wanted to get out there. I wanted to share. I hope you found some value in it. And then if you ever have any questions, please send them to me. I would love to answer some of your questions more directly in this kind of a format. Um, so yeah, thank you.